Your #1 news and talk station. 567 Cape Talk.
567 Cape Talk.
23 minutes now past 5 o'clock. Aung San Suu Kyi took her seat in the Parliament of Myanmar/Burma yesterday, along with a couple of other new parliamentarians, to cement what one analyst calls a fragile détente between her movement and the administration of the president, which has put into place some reforms since taking power from the junta last year. It's the subject of Zapiro's cartoon in the Times newspaper today. Suu Kyi takes seat in Burmese parliament, and there is a tiger with a very menacing look on its face. And it's sort of crouched down, and Suu Kyi is approaching it with a saddle. He's going to ride the back of a very hungry and malevolent-looking tiger. On Skype to us now from London is Dr. Lee Jones, a lecturer in the School of Politics and International Relations at the University of London. Lee, good afternoon. Is that, do you think, a decent representation of what faces Suu Kyi, trying to stay on the back of the tiger?
Well, certainly she's riding a number of different constituencies. Clearly,
so much for modern technology and Skype. Lee, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I couldn't for a while. Now I can. Would you mind picking up again? She's trying to. You were suggesting that there are a lot of different constituencies to who are expecting things from her.
Yeah, so now she has taken her seat in Parliament. It's going to be quite tricky for her, because she seems to want to try and reform the constitution to try and deliver a more democratic dispensation within the country. But it's not clear whether that's really what her constituents want her to deliver. And the question is, can she deliver on some of the more bread and butter issues that the people who are voting for her want her to deliver on? And that's not clear either. So she now has to oversee the transition of the NLD from a symbolic opposition party to a political movement and a political machine that's capable of delivering benefits to the people that voted into office. And that's a very difficult transition to make, particularly given how weakened the NLD emerges from the period of direct military rule.
And do you think that she's been invited in primarily to offer legitimacy in the expectation that her ability to deliver on those bread and butter issues is going to be very limited, but at the least the new government gets a significant degree of legitimacy from having her in the Parliament?
Well, I think there's some truth in that, but I think also what the military were looking for is a stable settlement inside the country. I mean, this is a country with the world's longest-running ethnic separatist movements and a civil war that has essentially been raging to some extent since the late 1940s. So the military was very worried about giving up control, given the long-running ethnic separatist movements along its borders, and also given internal unrest in the Burman heartlands. And so, yes, there's a desire for legitimacy, certainly, but I wouldn't necessarily write it off as just window dressing on what is essentially an unchanged regime. I think we have seen an unprecedentedly democratic dispensation within Burma, and certainly the most democratic arrangement since the 1960s. So certainly it's not a free-for-all. It's not a fully liberalised polity. People do not enjoy the same freedoms as people in more established democracies, for example. But nonetheless, there's much greater freedom than there was even 18 months ago. And the idea that Aung San Suu Kyi would be taking her seat in Parliament seemed inconceivable 2 years ago. So I don't think we should simply write off what's happening or be so suspicious that we refuse to identify and recognise when reform is really happening, even though it is still very strained, very constrained too.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Lee Jones, politics lecturer in the School of Politics and International Relations at the University of London, on Skype to us from